Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and so thrilled to be joined by today's guest, Marcel Spears. And in case you couldn't tell by his shirt, he's here to talk about the neighborhood. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because you're so many seasons into the show at this
Mhm.
point, and obviously when you first developed this character, there's so much work that comes into family relationships, backstory, who he is, making a lot of
Mhm.
very specific choices. But now that you're several seasons in, I was really interested, what does character preparation look like for you when you come into shooting a new season of the show at this point?
That's a really good question. I think for me at this point, because we know the character so well, because we've gotten to, and it's honestly it's a blessing to get to sit with a character for so long. So when you get to do a series, and especially a series that runs for 4 seasons like we have so far, you know your characters very intimately. And so at this point, I know sort of Marty's motivations. I know what he wants. I know like his little quirks and isms. These aren't things that I'm learning at this point. What I'm trying to discover when I approach the character now is one specifically what's happening in the episode and like what how's this affecting Marty in this moment? Like what can I discover new about this character? Like what's something different I can learn about myself um, as an artist, but also like what's something different I can give Marty, or like how can this person like grow? Like how can I push this person forward and show his progression from season 1 to season 4 um, when I'm getting the materials, like when I'm looking at the page.
And within that progression with him as a character, he's such a crux in his life, age wise, of, growing and developing, figuring out a little bit more about who he is and his own identity, both within his family and as an individual. And I love that development that we get to just continue watching that arc. And at the same time, you also play him in a way where there is still a little bit of that kind of childhood naivety and childhood confidence
Yeah.
in certain things that maybe he hasn't quite figured it out, but he thinks he has. And there's some great comedy that comes from that. And is that very second nature to you at this point, figuring out the little arcs of development for him in that regard and where he's still kind of like pulled back a little bit in certain spaces? Or is there a consciousness in like, okay, well, I think that after this experience, this would be the things that he's learned, this would be who he's going to become from that moment?
I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like Marty, he's so intelligent and he's so incredibly witty, and like he leads with that a lot. He's very proud of that, of his intellectual accomplishments as an engineer, and even within the family dynamic, like he sort of touts himself as like one of the smarter ones. He doesn't say it often, um, but I think because of that, because he's so like book smart, there's an opportunity that I found early on in his character to like let him learn sort of these common sense things and sort of these life things. And I think we all know people like that, younger, like millennial kind of people who are like nerdy or really book savvy and just don't have no idea about this like one particular subject. And I think for Marty that can encompass so many life things, and it's a lot of fun like giving him that sort of innocence or that ability to discover all of these new things as a young man and as he develops and grows and gets older, um, as he sort of tries to define his manhood, like having an example as Calvin, his dad played by Cedric the Entertainer, and his older brother Malcolm played by Sheehan McKinney. Like it gives him sort of perspective to sort of navigate his own way into manhood as he does what so many of us had to do, and I'm still trying to do, which is like find my footing as an adult. Like I'm old enough to be considered an adult, but I still mentally feel like a kid. And it's that transition of like accepting adulthood and understanding like that compromise of, well, I am a grown up, but I don't necessarily have to be a grown up the same way that my grandfather was. You know what I'm saying? Like I get a chance to sort of discover that for myself, and it's interesting to be able to tell that story even subtly through Marty.
Yeah, no, I love watching it. And when it comes to the journey yourself as a creative and as an artist and really finding your voice in these collaborative work environments on TV shows, I wanted to talk about the way that working on The Mayor has really kind of carried over into the way that you work in this environment on The Neighborhood, because you've spoken at length in the past about how it was such a great learning opportunity, training ground, and that a lot of that actually came from directors coming to set who were incredibly open and really encouraged you to have a voice and to put forward ideas and to play around with different choices. And so how has that then translated and lent itself to the way that you come to set, the way that you collaborate with the directors, the way that you collaborate with your scene partners on the neighborhood?
I think for me, I learned early on, and I was lucky because I feel like a lot of actors starting out, they don't get the opportunity to learn this lesson until much later in their career. But I learned early on that what we do really is a team sport. Like, it is a team effort. It is completely dependent on the collaboration of these many talented and gifted artists, like, coming together to do a really good job. And when I got the mayor, I was like coming straight out of grad school. I thought, like, as soon as I got out of grad school, like, I would immediately start booking because the world would see how incredibly gifted and sort of a genius level talent I was, and that did not happen. Your boy was out here struggling, and I was doing like all these basement plays, and I was doing all these regional theater plays, and just sort of like getting better and like honing my skill, but still feeling very much untested, still feeling like I didn't know how to sort of step into my power, if you will, on set. And so when I booked the mayor, me being nervous and like even sometimes dealing with, I guess, what I can identify now as like imposter syndrome, like being in this place with like getting something that I wanted so long and then feeling like I don't really deserve it. I have no idea what the hell's going on. So then, like, stepping into a position where the cast is warm and inviting and like there's an immediate bond between everybody on set, and then getting directors who trusted me and having writers who trusted me. Like, the mayor was a special show because even though like it didn't get the run that I would have liked it to have, that set was like the best set for me to have as my first set. Like, these directors came on and they trusted me with this character TK. They trusted me to be able to like do things that I didn't know that I was allowed and permitted to do. Like, they gave me the opportunity to ad lib when I didn't know that that was a thing that I could do. I felt like that was like something that the pros could do, and it's something that I'm really good at, but I didn't know that I had the freedom to do so. And when they give you that and you sort of have that agency, even in that small way, like, it sort of forces you to mature really quickly on set. And I think I can't ever. I'm always gonna acknowledge and credit that experience for sort of giving me a kick in the pants to like really step into my artistry in the way that I have and sort of like move through space and navigate my career the way that I have.
And one of the other sides of being an artist that often isn't discussed as much is the business side of it. And you've
Ooh.
also said that that was also a thing that you learned a lot about in working on the mayor. And then when you look at the neighborhood and you're working with Cedric the entertainer, and it sounds like he's very, very hands-on on like the business side as a producer on the show. And so there's also that really great opportunity to learn from osmosis through working with him. And what have you found to be the most really valuable aspects of the business side of your artistry that you've learned from these two experiences?
I am still learning. I'm still learning. And the like beautiful thing is Yvette Nicole Brown was on the mayor with me, and she really like adopted the boys on that show. Like, she really looked out for us and like gave us sage advice about like just like how like set etiquette and like how to carry yourself and like what what networking really is when you're on a job, like what it means to network. It's not like shaking hands and like going to like brunch parties. It's really like your work. That's your business card is your work and your work ethic and your ability to be personable. Because the truth is, nobody wants to work with somebody that is like a Debbie Downer. Nobody wants to work with somebody who makes working difficult. And so when you come into a space and you like bring your best self to a space, like you give the energy that you want to receive, and that will always carry you farther in your career than you can ever expect. And Yvette is like a testament of that. Like, that's literally how she's been so successful and maintained her relevancy in this business. And I think that was like something that really landed on me really heavily. And then I met Ced, and when you see our show, when you watch the neighborhood, when you look at anything that has anything to do with the neighborhood, that's Cedric. Like, Jim Reynolds and Cedric the Entertainer like combined Wonder Twin Powers activated and created like this amazing show. And Cedric really is the captain of the ship in all aspects. And for me, as an artist, understanding that eventually I would hope that my storytelling evolves in such a way that I can produce and write and direct and like go to networks and pitch like shows about people that I want to see, and shows about like experience that I haven't seen on TV yet. Watching Cedric sort of walk in those footsteps and really guide our show in the way that he has done so beautifully, it's like, it's inspiring. It's crazy. It's like watching like Michael Jordan warm up. It's like watching Cedric navigate the business side of this the way that he does, being such an incredible artist and comedian, and then see him like seriously, like every step of the way, like handling our show. It's like a masterclass.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about your work comedically as an actor as well, because there's so many great moments for you within the show and so many great ensemble moments as well, where you all really get in there and play off of each other. And even just from what you were saying about when you first worked on The Mayor, and kind of learning about ad-libbing, and I was really interested in how you feel that you've had a genesis as an artist and working on The Neighborhood in the time that you've spent working with this cast, and the way that you've really evolved a lot of your comedic sensibilities and the way that you're able to tell character and story in that way so adeptly.
I think so. Like, I want to say that I got a lot of my comedic sensibility from training really hard and going to grad school and like going to undergrad, like going to Columbia University, getting my master's, and going to Prairie View and studying the fine art of theater. But I feel like a lot of those seeds were planted from just watching TV, like as a kid, watching Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell and Alfonso Ribeiro and Jaleel White and like Will Smith, all of these people who were hilarious. Like Martin Lawrence on the Martin Show, like his physical comedy, I don't even know if you could get away with doing the stuff that Martin and Jamie and Tashina Arnold were doing at that time. It's like Lucille Ball is vaudevillian, like how sort of big they can be, but still keep it contained. And so like, I feel like I absorbed all of that through watching. And then once I went to school and once I started getting training, I started being able to put terms and like practice to what I had watched and what I always sort of saw myself as. So then when I get on the show and I actually have a chance to like work on a multicam show and like put these things into practice, and the people that I get to do it with are Beth Bears and Tashina Arnold, who are both incredible physical comedians. And then I have Cedric and Max, who like off the dome ad lib like crazy. Like they're smart and they're sharp, and every ad lib they do, not everyone lands, but every ad lib they do is relevant to the scene. And it's like it's so, again, it feels like I'm constantly in class, but not so much in class to where like I'm sitting back and watching, but I'm like really engaged, and it gives me an opportunity to experiment. And I feel like that kind of freedom is something that I wish every actor could get, because it has informed the way that I approach the work. Like I feel like I'm more experimental. I feel like I take bigger risks, especially being on a show, on a multi-camera show, which allows for a little. It allows you to be a little broad. It gives me an opportunity to like just really go for it, like really go for it. And I'm encouraged often by my castmates to go for it, like go bigger.
And obviously, one of the elements and aspects of the show that people are really drawn in by is that this show has such an ability to have deep conversations, discourse, and dialogues within it, and really still using comedy as a tool to do that. Because when people are laughing, it disarms you a little bit. People don't have their guards up and they feel more open to certain dialogues and conversations. And the show does that so adeptly. And when you first started working on a show like this that really is intentionally in that space, did you find it natural to figure out what that looked like comedically, to be playing around with, much more deeper emotional moments, but within the comedy space? Or was there a little bit of a journey in finding that balance?
Like, look, I'm a black man. Okay, I'm a black man in 2021, and I feel like it is incredibly organic and almost necessary for the sitcom, like the comedy that we tell, to hold true and to reflect like real life experiences. I feel like all of my favorite sitcoms, all of my favorite comedies do that so well. Obviously, comedy is relatable, and comedy gives anyone an opportunity to it's approachable. It gives anyone an opportunity to sort of be invited at the table and have a conversation in a really safe way. So it's always necessary for the show to be funny, but also have something to say, because I think if you don't have both of those elements, like the show can't survive. It will feel false if it didn't have sort of the medicine in with like the candy and the goodies. Like the veneer on our show would make it unrelatable, and these people would be unrecognizable. So it's again, it's something that is completely organic to me because I'm a comedian. Like I'm a comedic actor that navigates the world as a Black person. I'm in my Black body, and even though I'm like having a lot of fun and I'm telling like a really fun story consciously, I'm always aware, or trying to be aware, that like the stories that I tell need to say something about the people. It needs to say something about these human beings. It needs to touch somebody at home so that they feel seen. It needs to touch somebody at home so it shifts their perspective about people who look like me. It needs to be something that sort of advances the progress of Black people, as of Americans, of neighbors, of gentrifiers, of like anybody. Like it needs to be something that people see and feel as well as laugh.
Yeah, I appreciate that with the show so much. And I wanted to jump back to talking a little bit about your theater experience as well, because you were touching upon that before. And
Mm-hmm.
it seems like that as well is such a great space to really get to hone your craft when you're doing the same show, when you're spending that much time in rehearsal, sitting with a character, doing that show night after night. I was interested in how you feel that has really shaped a lot of the way that you work as an actor, even when it's on a show like The Neighborhood, because of having that stage experience.
I think theater is an invaluable educational tool for actors and writers, like playwrights. Like writing, acting, being a part of making theater is like there's an alchemy in it that I can't fully explain. Like you can't really quantify it, but it's something that once you do it, and once you do it often, and once you do it well, the things that you learn from that, you will be able to sort of go anywhere with it. Like you'll be able to use those tools and repurpose them in any storytelling art form. And I feel like that's what theater did for me. Like I'm a theater baby, I'm a theater kid. Like I'm always going to be a theater kid. I'm always going to be a theater nerd. I'm always going to love musicals. I'm always going to love August Wilson. Um, it's one of those things that doing those kinds of shows, those big shows that are like sometimes 2.5 hours, and you're doing the same show every night for weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. If you're doing a Broadway run, it's like months. You know what I'm saying? Like you're doing this show, and every night is different. Every night is different. Every night the audience is seeing this for the first time, or even if people have come back, like this show is different. And it's that kind of like magical moment where the doors close, the lights dim, and that show is about to start. Everybody in that room is on one accord. Everybody in that room is in agreement that we're going to be here. We're going to be present for whatever this thing is. And when you do that, it gives you the ability, at least for me, I have found that gives me the ability to tap into sort of a bit of that when I'm on stage now doing my TV show, or when I'm doing like single cam. Like the scope is different because it's not the entire audience, it's just this camera, but like you sort of lock into that moment and you're like, this take is probably not going to happen again, even though we repeat it. So I'm going to do what I can to make this take different from the last take, or better, or smarter, or try it a different way. Like it gives me the opportunity to sort of explore that.
I really love that. And now that you're so many seasons in and you've done so many episodes, and like you were talking about at the beginning, your relationship with your character, is so in depth at this point as well. What are the learning curves that you feel are still continuing for you as an actor working on The Neighborhood at this point?
What are the learning curves? It's kind of one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to like figure it out. I feel like personally, as an artist, like the longer we do this show, the more I learn from the show. Like when we got a season 4, I've never been a part of a season 4 pickup. I've never like gotten to renegotiate my contract before. So I've never gotten to this point. I had no idea how to do it. I had no idea what to do. Luckily, again, I had like really good mentors in Tashina and Sid, just sort of helping me navigate that. So the longer we do the show, the more I learn about myself as an artist and myself as a businessman, and like how to incorporate those two things, and like understanding that like as an actor it sort of feels distant, but like I really have a relationship with CBS. Like I'm associated with CBS in so many different ways that I didn't expect when I just took a job, because I was just an actor taking a job. So that has been something that I think I'm still learning. Also as an artist, the other thing that I'm learning or appreciating really is like that this sort of blessing and a curse of being so good at what I do in one way that people only see me that way. And that's like the box that they put you in. So like because Marty is so fun and innocent and bright and vibrant, a lot of the auditions that I get are just that. And I obviously want to be able to tell like more diverse stories. I want to be able to do it all. And so like coming up against that wall of people being like, well, can he do that? Like, is that something he can do? Has also been interesting as an artist. I think as far as like the character Marty, and as far as the show specifically, there is, and I mean, you see it when you see like these reunion specials, like Friends and Fresh Prince, like there's something to be said about an ensemble of actors and artists who sit with these characters and just grow over years. The show, like something happens to the show that I think I'm excited to see. I'm really looking forward to seeing like how it changes and how it grows as we all grow closer as a family and bond. Like I just recently watched all of the videos and Instagrams and things like that of Blackish as they were saying their farewells, and just seeing like the scope of that, like all those years watching like these kids literally grow up on this show and like what that means to them as artists, what those characters mean to us as people who watch them. I'm looking forward to that on our show.
Yeah. Well, as an audience member of the show, I look forward to continuing to watch that journey with you and all the rest of the cast. Thank you so much for talking about all of this, Marcel. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.